And then recently, we have been very worried about our water under the Security and Prosperity Partnership for North America. Now, the Security and Prosperity Partnership is this agreement or this handshake that took place in Waco, Texas in March 2005 that agrees to create a security and prosperity fortress in North America, as the premier of this province calls it, ziplocking North America into a security perimeter designed in Washington in order to make sure that the exchange of goods is uninterrupted, although of course it hasn't been in any case. And what happened in this past, there were many signs that they were talking about water under the Security and Prosperity Partnership's Resource Pact. But it wasn't until this past spring that I received in the mail, in a brown paper bag, information about a group called the Center for International and Strategic Studies in the U.S. Now, this is a huge think tank that works very closely with the U.S. government, and it had formed something called Global Water Futures to advise the American government on water as a national security issue. And they're working with and paid for by Coca-Cola, ITT Industries, which is a giant water technology company, Procter & Gamble, which now makes home purifiers, and then the Sandia National Laboratories. And Sandia National Laboratories works with the Pentagon, and I quote, to maintain U.S. military and nuclear superiority. And currently, Sandia Laboratories is contracted out to Lockheed Martin to run, and Lockheed Martin is the world's biggest weapons manufacturer. Now put this together. The United States is running out of clean water. It has suddenly started to realize that water is a national security issue of the utmost importance. It's hired this think tank and this Sandia Laboratories run by a weapons manufacturer to advise them on water as a national security issue. You start to see how the military concept and the military construct is going to start to surround this need for water. Well, it turns out that this Center for International and Strategic Studies was also hired to do the security environmental blueprint for the Security and Prosperity Partnership for North America, called North America Futures 2025. And the document that I got hold of was a planned meeting in Calgary this past May, closed door, where they were openly talking about security and water together, and that Canada had 20% of the world's water, false, but that's what it said, and the United States was in trouble, and that Canada's water would, under this process, start to become U.S. water. The United States is interested in Canada's water. There are a lot of people in this country who would sell Canada's water out, and there are corporations chomping at the bit. And for anybody who says it's too expensive to send that water south, that's what they said about the tar sands as recently as 5 years ago. It would never be economically feasible to zap that, you know, through that heavy steam process, to zap that heavy oil out of the tar sands. When the U.S. needs it, the U.S. wants it, it will pay what it has to pay. And we need to be, I can taste this process. This is happening in little bits and pieces of drops of hints there, and then they retreat, and then they come back. I remember it very well, and the population kind of gets softened up, and aren't we mean, and aren't we being selfish with our energy, and aren't we being selfish with our water? Why shouldn't we share it with Las Vegas? While I've got, you know, this notion here, I do want to add something to you, to folks in British Columbia. This privatization is one really dangerous first step towards the corporate privatization of water here, but so is this process where private hydroelectric companies, the run-of-the-river project, where they're getting the right to use public water to make money for themselves on hydroelectricity, and potentially the right to claim to own that water or the right to sell that water. And this is how it happens. It doesn't start with you don't get the right to vote should we have private or public water systems. If we had that, we would vote overwhelmingly against it, and that would be the end of it. What happens is that they sneak in through the back door, kind of like what's happening in healthcare, and nobody votes against public health care, but one day you wake up and it's been chipped away. It's a death of 1,000 cuts. And there are some real concerns here in British Columbia about privatization, and companies like EPCOR and and others that are just sitting there waiting, because the water issue is going to hit here like it's hit everywhere. It's going to hit on this island, this beautiful island of yours. So we must be prepared with a fight and a set of principles that guide us. So my very, very great concern is that this is going to be a complete disincentive to protect water sources, because there is so much money to be made by these big water companies. And the water companies I'm talking about are now General Electric, Procter & Gamble, Dow Chemical. Do you want to trust your drinking water with the people who brought you Bhopal? They're big time into water now.